Are we ready? Okay, we'll make a start. Thank you very much, everyone. Good morning. As you know, today's meeting is open to the public, and welcome you all of you in attendance. My name is Councillor Abdul Khayum, Councillor for Firth Park, and I'm the chair of this licensing subcommittee. So before I ask my other colleagues to introduce themselves, I'm going to hand over to Democratic Services just to read out the housekeeping arrangements.
Thank you, Chair. In the event of the fire alarm sounding, please take instruction from staff and stewards. The assembly point is at Tudor Square. Please can I request everyone to switch mobile devices to silent mode so as not to disturb the conduct of the meeting. The meeting today will be webcast and the recording will also be available for people to view later through the Council's website. It is also possible that Sheffield Live TV will record and rebroadcast this meeting. While the meeting is open to the public, photography, video and sound recording of the proceedings is permitted. However, the Chair has discretion to withdraw or suspend this permission, for example, if the recording is disrupting the conduct of the meeting or is being undertaken in a manner which could capture personal information, or in the event that a member of the public participating in the meeting objects to being recorded. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Do you have any apologies for the meeting? No? Any exclusions of the public and press? No. Any declarations of interest? No. Okay, could I ask everyone around the room to introduce themselves now, please? Starting from you, Sam.
Morning, everyone. I'm Samantha Bond, Legal Advisor to the Subcommittee.
Kurtis.
Morning, my name's Councillor Kurtis, Crossland, Councillor for Dayton and member of the Licensing Committee.
Hello, I'm Councillor Woodcraft and I'm elected member for Fulwood.
Good morning, I'm Jane Goff from Licensing and I'm here to read the report today.
I'm John Cooper from Democratic Services.
Can I ask the interested parties to introduce themselves, please?
Thanks, Chair. I'm Peter Sefton, Chair of Changing Chef, which is the Residents' Association for the City Centre.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mark Booth, a resident of West One.
Thank you.
Hi, we are apply here.
Use the microphone, please.
Hi, we are here just to say we have a sufficient reasons that we should extend opening time to 3. Yeah.
Introduce yourself at the moment and you come back to that afterwards. You can say who you are.
Yeah.
Just say your names.
Wen Jingwang. She's the owner. What's her name? Tianhui Zhou.
Okay, thank you. So I'm now going to ask the solicitor to the committee to outline the procedure for this morning, what the procedure we're following this morning, so we're clear exactly what's going to be happening this morning now. Okay? Samantha.
Thank you, Chair. Has everyone got a copy of the papers? Do you want a copy? Just the one? Have we run out? Or? Right. Are you okay? Have you? Oh, they've got a copy as well. So the procedure is just right at the back of the pack of the papers on page 56. So the licensing officer, who's Jane this morning, will introduce the report. Any questions concerning the report can be asked by members and the applicant. So if there's anything that needs clarifying that's missing or is incorrect, so we can get that amended for the record. There are no responsible authorities present today, so what we'll do, we'll just hand straight over to the interested parties to detail their relevant representations. Members will then have an opportunity for questions, and with the leave of the chair, the applicant may ask the interested parties questions as well. Once we've done with that, we'll head over to the applicant to detail the variation application, provide clarification on the application, and respond to the representations made, both in the report and during the hearing this morning. Again, members will ask the applicant questions, and again, with the leave of the chair, the interested parties can also ask you questions too. The applicant will then be given the opportunity to sum up the application. We'll then take the options as detailed in the report from the licensing officer, and we'll go into private session so members can take legal advice and consider the application. The decision of the licensing committee will be given in accordance with the requirements of the Licensing Act 2003 and regulations made thereunder. At any time during the hearing, members can request legal advice. That can either be an open session, as we are now, or private, where we'll just ask you to nip into that room while we have a discussion, and when you come back in, we'll feedback what was discussed and the outcome of that. And as has already been covered, the hearing is public this morning and is currently being live webcast and recorded. That's everything from me. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Sam. So now I'm going to ask the licensing officer to introduce the report. Jane.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. So this morning is a variation application for Chong, Qing, 290 Glossop Road, Sheffield S10 2HS. So the applicants are Chong, Qing Restaurants Limited. The application was received by the licensing service on the 19th of February 2024 and is attached to Appendix A of the report. The reasons for the variation were to extend the hours for the provision of late night refreshment for 2,300 hours to 0,300 hours 7 days a week to accommodate new barbecue snacks options for Chinese students who enjoy late night snacks, which the premises operators have received many requests for up to press. A full copy of the current premises licence is in Appendix B of the report, and throughout the consultation period, the applicant has already agreed with one of the objectors to add a condition to the licence if it gets granted, to alleviate any concerns regarding extra noise nuisance which may be generated from a later night and from delivery drivers, which states no delivery service is permitted between the hours of midnight and 3 o'clock in the morning on any day of the week. This agreement and any associated correspondence with this agreement is also at Appendix C of the report. So the reasons for being here today to help to determine in front of the licensing committee is that we still have two outstanding objections, one from local resident and one from the local resident association Changing Chef. All the representations and reasons for these representations are Appendix D, if you'd like to see those. So just to save a bit more time, I'm going to scoot through the report down to the appeals section, Section 7. The Licensing Act 2003, Section 181 and Schedule 5 makes provision for appeals to be made by the applicant and those making representations against decisions of the licensing authority to the Magistrates' Court. So the recommendations this morning, Chair, are that members carefully consider the representations that have been made and take such steps as the subcommittee consider appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Everybody okay with that? Any questions on the report from anybody before we move on? No? Okay. There's no responsible authority. Okay. Sorry, is it the objectors now or is it the... Yeah, Changing Chef or Mr. Booth, whoever wants to go first and outline your objections.
I'll go first, Chair. Thank you, Chair. My name is Peter Sefton, as I mentioned before, and I chair the City Centre Residents Association called Changing Chef. As a voluntary organisation, we've been representing the interests of people who live in the city centre since 2012. We are represented on many committees and involved with community activities throughout the city centre. In order for you to know what I'm referring to when I explain our strong objection to this application, with your permission, Chair, we have a plan of the area that will now be handed out, together with information about courier collections from the likes of Deliveroo and Just Eat, and I'll be referring to these when I speak. So is it okay if we just put out the maps that we've got to explain the area and what I'll be talking about?
If the applicant's happy as well, if you pop it to the applicant first so they can have a look and then...
Yeah, one for Sam and one for Jane and one for Sam. No, I am going to speak for a while, Chair, because we regard this as a vital application that could impact on the lives of many people and may change our support for the Council's strategy to repopulate the city centre, of which we are fully in favour. We see this seemingly innocuous application as a Trojan horse with major implications for residential areas in the city centre. Today is a perfect example of why we call ourselves Changing Chef. We are trying to change the perception of the city centre to point out that it is a large and growing community, currently of 27,000 residents, and soon to be 35,000 residents. We believe it deserves some protection from unwarranted disturbances by applications for late night opening in residential areas. In this case, it's for a contentious purpose in a residential area that previously has not been subjected to the disturbances these opening hours will bring. Our case for the 4 licensing conditions listed as having to be met: number 1, the prevention of crime and disorder; number 2, public safety; number 3, the prevention of public nuisance; and number 4, the protection of children from harm. In this case, our objection is to the prevention of public nuisance. I will touch on the prevention of crime and disorder also, which does have some relevance. It may seem that Changing Chef has brought about this meeting today for insignificant reasons. On the face of it, this may appear to be a minor extension of opening times for a specific reason, but that isn't how things work out in practice. What the application requests is, and we've just heard that from Ms. Goff, extend the hours for the provision of late night refreshments from 2300 to 0300, 7 days a week, to accommodate the new barbecue snack options for Chinese students who enjoy late night snacks, which the premises operators have received many requests for. However, for residents of the city centre, this is D-Day, with D standing for defend. Defend the right of residents to the prevention of public nuisance. This seemingly innocuous application raises the question, is all of the city centre to become a 24-hour economy, or can the majority of its residents get a good night's sleep? And this is the challenge for Sheffield city centre, and it seems that the battle may start here this morning. So we passed round to you 2 pieces of photo information to explain our opposition to the application. So if you look at the map headed, excuse me, nighttime quiet area and the Devonshire Quarter boundary, you will see there along the top of the rectangle that has the map inside it is Glossop Road and West Street. Glossop Road on the left, West Street on the right. You can see an arrow where it points down and says nighttime economy stops here. You can also see the location of Chong restaurant with the red star in the centre of the square. And you can see the residential streets, Victoria Street, Gell Street, Glossop Road Baths residential apartments that are on the other side of the road. At the bottom you can see Devonshire nighttime quiet area boundary, which is the green line that runs round, carefully skirts around West 1, comes back onto Glossop Road, and then comes down the inner ring road, which is Upper Hanover Street. So I'll just talk about that. The West Street nighttime economy is something we accept and we live with. Although there are frequent complaints about breaches of some premises licensing conditions, just 2 in the last 3 weeks are being investigated by the council. And we believe that one of those is a serious breach of its licensing conditions, which takes up the time and the professional knowledge of council officers, both in licensing and legal enforcement. You can see that this application moves the boundary of West Street westwards into Glossop Road, and that is completely unacceptable to residents. Not just local residents, but to anyone living close to the boundary of the traditional nighttime economy, anywhere in the city centre, which is why this is such an important case. The location of Chong is not a nighttime economy area, and it is difficult to see any reason to move the recognised breakpoint simply to permit 3 AM closing for a Chinese restaurant whose custom after midnight will primarily be courier collection service and the entire circus of disturbance that brings with it. We recognise that there has been this comment about deliveries not being allowed. We presume that deliveries means collections not being allowed, and we see that as a completely impractical and unworkable regulation. On the map, you can see that Glossop Road is the boundary of the Devonshire Nighttime Quiet Area, known to the council as the NTQA, the boundary of which is on the opposite side of the road from Chong, and it extends south to Edgerton Street, which shows you from the green arrow pointing up to where Edgerton Street is. The problem that concerns us will be the disturbance for local residents this kind of activity brings, even though they're on the opposite side of the road to the Devonshire Nighttime Quiet Area. You can see from the map that residential buildings and residential streets are close to the Chongqing location, with the red lines for Victoria Street and Gell Street, plus the Glossop Road bus building. You can also see the black arrow where the late night opening economy currently ends and where Chongqing is in relation to it. Now, if you turn over the sheet onto the reverse side, you will see under the heading Crime Around Chongqing Area in February 2024, there are two extracts from the South Yorkshire Police website. The top map shows the recorded police incidents in this location in February, which are the latest figures available. 15 incidents in the turquoise, whatever colour it is, circle, not good on colours. And those incidents are 3 for antisocial behaviour, 3 for public order, 3 for violence and sexual offences, and 6 which are not classified. So those are in the location of the restaurant in question. Now on the map below, you can see the comparison with West Street figures for the same month. 20 recorded crimes in total, compared to 15 for the area around Chongqing restaurant. Not a lot of difference, but it shows that crime is there, but it is reducing as we approach the inner ring road at Upper Hanover Street. But it's still an alarming number, and that's before we have 3 AM closing at this restaurant. So we now see from the police reports that there are already disturbances in this area. But Changing Chef also receives reports from the public, which often don't reach South Yorkshire Police. So here are 2 further examples of antisocial behaviour from local residents. And I read out what they have said to us. A concern is late night parking. We often have cars parked illegally on Gell Street, and in some instances, this has blocked access to our home. As there is no provision for the monitoring of such parking at the extended opening hours, this means we have no means of reporting these problems. As we have seen with Pepper Greenhouse, that's on the corner of Gell Street on the nighttime quiet area map, many of our customers park on Gell Street late in the evening with no regard for the residents. I have on several occasions called Pepper Greenhouse and asked them to tell their customers not to park illegally. I feel this may only be amplified by this licence extension of Chongqing. And the second resident regarding Pepper Greenhouse again, which incidentally is a restaurant, a Chinese restaurant, which offers similar facilities to Chongqing, but is on the opposite side of the road. Another resident reported there would be increased noise, door slamming, etc., and antisocial behaviour. When permission was granted for a restaurant, this was for non-takeaway. Now, we haven't checked that point. We haven't checked that comment, but it is a very important one. When permission was granted for a restaurant, this was for non-takeaway. Although the pandemic has made trading difficult for everyone, Chongqing's business now seems to be mainly centred around takeaway delivery, with drivers pulling up on the double yellow lines at all times for collection. Is this allowed in terms of the conditions of use? So those were 2 residents' comments. And this feature of takeaway delivery, as I just touched on before, is a very important aspect for us. If these premises were on the other side of the road, they would be covered by the nighttime quiet area regulations and have to close at 12:30 AM. But courier collections, supertram horns, slamming car doors, traffic parking and antisocial behaviour that the expansion of West Street will create aren't constrained by the width of a road. They affect the whole of the nearby area. And as the pepper greenhouse complaints confirm, these problems spill out into the surrounding streets. So there will inevitably be disruption and public nuisance to the lives of people living nearby. Just as an example, last Friday morning at midnight, there was the report of a tram air horn being used in this part of West Street to awaken the neighbourhood, probably because a Deliveroo driver was obstructing the tram tracks while awaiting collection. I'll dwell on this briefly for one moment. Tram drivers will not pass a parked car on the near side unless they can be absolutely sure it is completely clear. They have limited vision on the near side of the tram and cannot risk either their personal responsibility for damaging the tram or allowing the 54-ton tram to hit a parked vehicle. So it is a question of sitting tight and sounding the air horn until someone comes out and moves the car. And unfortunately, where Chongqing is located, it's right on the tram tracks with a narrow pavement and not much space between the tram lines and the edge of the pavement. And the only non-obstructive parking in this location is on the Glossop Road pavement and the side streets, which is precisely why Pepper Greenhouse creates such problems and why it will be even worse with Chongqing. Now, if I can move on to the second sheet, which is headed the local impact of order collection and order delivery, you will see a picture of the Deliveroo and Just Eat cycle couriers waiting on Division Street outside the revolving sushi bar. This is how the Deliveroo and Just Eat system works. The couriers know there will be orders coming online for food from this outlet, so they wait nearby for the calls to come through to collect an order. And while waiting, they chat, and if they come in a car, they park on a side street and maybe get out and join the gang. And you can see on the same sheet, and this is a very important point, how prominently Chongqing is promoted on the internet. Google the name Chongqing Sheffield, and two things immediately appear. Its own website promoting order collection and order delivery, those are the two blue blocks, and Deliveroo promoting what can be ordered for collection and delivery by Deliveroo couriers from Chongqing. That's a copy of a page from a Google search for the restaurant. So it's clear that Chongqing has a high public profile for online deliveries, and Pepper Greenhouse experience tells us that the problem created by this 3 AM licence will be a problem of public nuisance. The licensing conditions allow for the prevention of public nuisance, and it is inevitable that this application will increase the amount of disturbance for people living nearby. A letter from South Yorkshire Police that concerned a different application earlier this year on West Street stated, with the premises being located on one of the busiest streets of the drinking circuit in the city centre, and with similar establishments closing earlier, we feel there may be potential for higher levels of custom in the early hours, leading to potential issues with those in drink. Now, it is very possible that people leaving other premises on West Street that close earlier will come along to Chongqing for take-out food. In our opinion, that statement from South Yorkshire Police applies just as much to this restaurant opening to 3 AM as it did to the one the police were referring to. And it's just one more expression of concern about the challenges that relate to problems in the area. It's worth pointing out that it isn't just Chinese students who will be attracted to this location. It's clear from the Chongqing online advertising strategy and Deliveroo's advert that their appeal is to everyone wanting courier deliveries to order from their outlet. And they've already confirmed this in writing. The management has explained that, and I quote, "Regrettably, we cannot agree to just only selling barbecue snacks at midnight. Although our intentions are to extend the hours to accommodate the additional requests, as a business, we will not turn away the opportunity for income if customers request things from our current menu." So it becomes a takeaway working until 3 AM. So it isn't just late night snacks, it's the full menu, and this full menu is heavily promoted online and through the Deliveroo courier outlets. So our hope as a group representing local residents and all city centre residents is that the council will not support a questionable application for late night opening on the edge of a quiet zone where the clear intent is to use courier collection services that will disrupt the lives of local people. and will add to the disturbance already being caused by Pepper Greenhouse. We cannot see how it's possible to differentiate and say we will not allow collections after midnight. The collections are advertised, they're widely available, and therefore we cannot see that suggested amendment as being acceptable. The Council has a policy of repopulating the city centre to meet its housing target, and it's one we fully support. But it must be appreciated that maintaining the residential areas as a place to get a good night's sleep is a priority for the 27,000 people who currently live in our city centre. So this apparently small application is actually, to us, representing the residents, a Trojan horse. It's the first attempt to break out from West Street into a hitherto accepted residential area. It is not an innocuous application to serve popular Chinese snacks to students. It's an attempt to break out of the West Street nighttime economy and extend it into Glossop Road, which, if granted, will probably lead to more applications until the premises are taken up all the way to the Ring Road. So that we believe there is ample evidence of the need for the prevention of public nuisance. West Street is a public nuisance, but it's been there for a long time and it's accepted. But this will extend the West Street public nuisance into Glossop Road. So those prevention of public nuisance powers are available to this subcommittee. However, there are other powers available to the Council contained in its planning guideline, and I want to conclude this presentation by providing an alternative option. We raise this point fully realising that this subcommittee is responsible for licensing, but we're also aware that you could refer this application to planning if you feel that's appropriate. In the Council's nighttime uses online document at page 4, paragraph 4, and I've provided links to this page to the officers here, there's a heading, Nighttime Uses, Planning Guideline 2, City Centre and Neighbourhoods. And if you allow me, I'll just read out what it says, because it's very relevant to this situation. It says, leisure, food and drink uses will be allowed if A, conditions for nearby residents will not be harmed by noise breakout, traffic, parking on nearby streets, odours, street noise or general disturbance. They are unlikely to lead to, again, leisure, food and drink uses will be allowed if they are unlikely to lead to antisocial behaviour that would disturb residents, workers or users of the area. And C, this is one not really relevant, neither the parking of cars nor the provision of signs, tables, chairs outside the premises would impair the safety or ease of movement of pedestrians and road users. In considering the criteria, the Council will take into account the cumulative harmful effect of existing leisure and entertainment uses, the cumulative harmful effect. The Council may attach conditions to permissions to ensure that these criteria are met. And then there's a subheading, reasons for the guideline. People living in the city centre and in neighbourhoods close to licensed premises are entitled to protection from unacceptable levels of noise and disturbance. The guideline will be applied when determining planning applications for developments that fall into the use class categories of drinking establishments, hot food takeaways and nightclubs. This would be particularly important for areas outside the Guideline 1 zone. Well, that's the green line on the map that you were looking at, just across the road from the Guideline 1 zone. This would be particularly important for areas outside the Guideline 1 zone, as there are significant numbers of existing and proposed residents that could be affected. Now, Chong is just outside the Guideline 1 zone, and that planning regulation applies to them even though they are outside the zone. It seems to back up what we are seeking from licensing. Licensing has the power, in our opinion, to refuse this application on the grounds of the prevention of public nuisance. But if the advice you receive from officers is contrary to our opinion, it is possible to ask planning to consider the regulations I have just quoted as the means for rejecting the application. So in conclusion, it is council policy to repopulate the city centre as a feature of its house building strategy and to revitalise our city centre in this imaginative way. A corollary to that strategy must be support for the people who come to live here. And the candle can't be burned at both ends. which is what seems to be happening here. The candle has got very short and both ends are burning, and one of them has to be extinguished. Yes, there is a nighttime economy, and it too must be protected. We agree. But it also must be constrained and not allowed to spread into the residential areas. As residents, we know that through the night opening, especially where takeout food is concerned, brings disruption. And it is not a question of providing new barbecue snacks options for Chinese students who enjoy late night snacks. This is for the whole menu. And regardless of any conditions offered by the applicant, it brings a host of delivery services to collect the orders that come from the internet to deliver those late night snacks to the people of Sheffield, including the Chinese meals that the management says it will continue to provide, which brings on-street activity like footfall, courier collection, supertram horns, traffic parking and antisocial behaviour that the extension of West Street will create. We cannot accept the rider that's been put on that says that deliveries will not happen after midnight. It's not possible to police that rider. So we're convinced that this application has 5 factors that suggest its rejection. Number 1, it will extend the West Street nighttime economy into Glossop Road. Number 2, it's directly opposite to the current nighttime quiet area. Number 3, if accepted, it will attract other nighttime business proprietors to this section of Glossop Road to further disrupt the lives of residents and extend West Street up to the inner ring road. It will certainly cause public nuisance from the evidence we have supplied regarding our experience of city centre living, which in my case is 19 years. And it conflicts with planning regulations designed to protect residents. All of which this subcommittee can prevent by rejecting it. And if the subcommittee cannot find the reasons to reject the application from the data supplied, can we ask that it be referred back to planning to be considered under planning guidelines? I'm sorry to have gone on for some time, but as you've presumably noticed from what I've said, this is a very important case and it does take a while to explain. Thank you to the councillors and the officers for the opportunity to make the views of residents known, and I'm happy to answer questions at the appropriate time.
Okay, thank you very much for that very detailed representation. Yes, we may have some questions, so I'm going to open to questions to officers and my colleagues. I'll just start with my colleagues first. Councillor Woodcraft, any questions?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, there's a lot to think about here. Can I just first ask the council officer about enforcement of this condition? I mean, a lot of the objection has been that it's not enforceable. Could you comment on that, please?
Certainly, if there is a condition on the licence stating that they cannot provide deliveries after midnight and it's seen that they do that, then that's a breach of their licence condition, and our officers would enforce against that and take any necessary action. So it is enforceable because it clearly states a close time to when they can stop deliveries or when they're permitted to carry out that activity. And if it's on the licence that it states midnight, then midnight it is.
Thank you. And mention was made of, was it Pepper Greenhouse? Do they have a similar arrangement? And we don't know about. Okay, we don't know about that.
I think they shut at 12:30.
Sorry?
I think they shut at 12:30, but I have just gone on Google, so it might not be completely accurate.
Okay, so I think a lot of this is confidence over the ability of the council to enforce, and if they can't enforce, and it's obviously difficult for people to be on the ground every day, but if they get caught out, presumably that licence can be revoked. Is that right?
It can be reviewed, certainly, and there's lots of different enforcement actions that can be taken, down to action plans with the local police. Anything like that's necessary. If it's deemed that there's a continued licence condition breach, then that would have to be addressed formally, yeah.
Thank you. Can I just ask a question of yourselves? You made mention about parking problems. There is a system which has recently been introduced by the police force called Operation Park Safe. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I am, Councillor. Yes, I am. I've not seen it being enforced, but I am aware of it. Yeah,
so I mean, basically, if someone parks dangerously, you can take a photograph of it and report it, and the police will follow it up. And there's a very high prosecution rate over this. I just wanted to make you aware of that.
No, thank you. That's interesting. Can I just mention a point about what you described about the enforcement? There's a lot of problems with enforcement at the moment. We get emails coming back regularly where we point out that there's a problem, that say we're very short-staffed in the licensing office, and therefore we'll get round to it when we can. So, we know the problems that licensing has. It's going to be difficult to see them enforcing this at 3 a.m. in the morning. But and we would like the council to strengthen the licensing department, but that's a separate issue. We'll deal with that on another occasion. We would really like licensing to be beefed up because it's getting very important. So enforcement is a challenge.
Okay, thank you. Just a little bit on the crime. Presumably the crime figures are categorised, as I can see. Do we know whether they're associated with any particular premises?
No, that's not available through these police statistics. They're just general statistics of what's happening in that location. If you zoom in, you can get more detail from particular places. I chose here to keep it at the area the two areas we're talking about, West Street and the area of the restaurant. But it only gives you a breakdown of the kind that's on there. Wherever you put it, it will show you in a little bit more detail if you zoom in on it. But these are generally what's happening in that, around that location, within maybe a radius of, on this map, I would say probably within a radius of about 100 yards, maybe something like that on that scale.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all for now. Thank you, Chair. I mean, I'll probably want to come back on 1 or 2 points later, but I'll give other councillors a go.
Thank you. Councillor Crossland.
Cliff stole all my questions. But I would say, well done on preparing a very detailed report. It obviously took a lot of work. Yeah, thank you for bringing it today.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sam.
Keep taking me by surprise today. I think you mentioned that certain residents have reported issues with premises in the area. Was it specifically Pepper Greenhouse or a mixture of premises?
No, it's specifically Pepper Greenhouse, which is a restaurant of the same kind as the Chinese restaurant, as Chong, and almost opposite, but just a little bit further up the road, only 50 yards further up the road.
Okay. So,
I perhaps should add to that, there aren't many other premises in the area. There's only those two, basically, of this nature. So there wouldn't be anything else to report about at that time of night.
So have you been directly approached by any of the residents, sort of Jill Street, Victoria Street, any of those in terms of this application? Has anyone sort of raised any concerns directly with you?
Yes, they have, and that was why we got these 2 comments from people that say there's already a lot of disruption. Those were 2 comments from Jill Street residents in reference to this particular application.
Okay.
Perhaps should add this on our website. It says that if you have a problem with licensed premises in your area, report them to Changing Chef.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I've mentioned that before, actually, but yeah, good to get it on record again. Thank you. So the concerns primarily in terms of the deliveries and the concern that the condition won't be adhered to, as opposed to the restaurant opening until 3 a.m, or is it twofold? It's both.
It would be twofold because 3 a.m. is what's on West Street, but not at this part of Glossop Road. So that would be a concern as well, because that will lead to other places opening until that time, and they will then apply for an alcohol licence. Almost certainly, this one said not going to sell alcohol after midnight, but if other places open up, all the premises could change. There's a pharmacy that could easily change. There's a recruitment agency. There's a accommodation agency. They're all available, no doubt, if they realise the owners can get a better lease value from turning them into restaurants.
Leads me actually to my next point. Is the concern alleviated at all by the fact that alcohol won't be served after midnight?
Not really, because the alcohol will come from West Street. They'll already have had the alcohol, as the police comment made. They will come along, if they find out that they can get Chinese food from this restaurant at this time of night, they will come along having got a lot of alcohol inside them on West Street. When the other place is closed, this one will be open.
So the concerns that people drifting from West Street, already intoxicated, in search of food, causing public nuisance?
Yes, I mean, following on the police logic,
Yeah.
which was applying to another place in West Street that wanted to stay open late. I mean, some of them are already open late, but this was one that wanted to stay open particularly late, and the comment from the police was, as I read out, that, you know, people will drift along here to get food because they've had a drink and they want something to eat before they go home, which then gets promptly vomited on the pavement before they get home.
All right, thank you, that's helpful.
Okay, yeah, no more questions? No, I've got no questions either, no, thank you. I think that's been quite thorough. I'm going to give an opportunity to our applicants. Do you have any questions of the representative before I ask you to say something?
Can we explain something about the Mr. Stevens' Bond's concern about that? Like the takeaways and deliveries and alcohol and the police crimes, those kind of things.
Get your opportunity to do that. I mean, do you have any questions for us? No. In that case, then I'm going to come over to you. If you want to now detail your application, then you can include whatever you want to say about that, your application. I do apologise. Sorry, before I come to you, Mr. Booth has got its representation to make. Apologies, Mr. Booth. Over to you.
Is there any way of turning it down? Yeah. I'll sit a bit further back. Is that okay? Peter had a tagline on his presentation, and I was for some reason something came to mind, which was a quote from a 1976 film called Network, and the quote was by the actor Peter Finch, and I've adapted it a little bit. It isn't very long. It's just, we're as mad as hell, and we're not going to take this anymore. So that's my little tagline. If you saw the film, you'd kind of know what it's about, but it's quite obscure now. So I'd like to start by saying I've lived in West One for 21 years, coming up to 21 years. So we have a lot of experience and know the area very well. And we live facing straight down West Street, and the other side of where I live faces directly onto Glossop Road. And unfortunately, over the last few years, there's been a significant increase in noise nuisance from bars, restaurants, takeaways, including student nights on a Wednesday, and the bars and restaurants and takeaways open until at least 3 o'clock on West Street, and now creeping towards Glossop Road. So, as licensing will know, we've made a number of complaints recently about noise nuisance from several bars and restaurants and takeaways in our area. So this includes Grappa and Beiju, both of which are on the first part of Glossop Road, and that's directly opposite of where I live. And unfortunately, both of those applications we missed. We missed the licence applications, so we weren't able to make an objection at the time. But we have had involvement from licensing about those two bars, and really good response from licensing, so not got any real complaint there. But even so, it required a lot of effort on my part and other people who also complained to point out that certain noise nuisance wasn't acceptable. We've also had have had to complain about Aslan's, Olivia's, 141, I think informally Cavendish and the Beehive. And this has been a mixture of music noise and customer noise. In general, we're also disturbed by noise from freelance delivery drivers or riders, often for Uber Eat, Deliveroo and Just Eat, and noise from, as Peter mentioned, car horns of taxis, or if there's a taxi in the way, the tram horn, which I don't know if you've ever heard it, but it's extremely loud at 12 o'clock, whenever the last time they run, but it's extremely loud. And especially if somebody doesn't move, they just put the horn on almost continuously. So the noise nuisance often comes from customers congregating outside the premises. And this can be customers coming from Carver Street or wherever they come from in the city centre, along West Street, and then stopping at takeaways, usually takeaways. And that was the issue we had with Aslan's, just groups and groups of people screaming, shouting. And as I mentioned in my complaint, maybe they're not aware of the amount of noise that they're making and or aware of how loud that is at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, because it doesn't stop when the bars close or the restaurants. So, and there is a staggered amount of restaurant and bar closing, as you're probably aware, from 12 o'clock right up to 5 o'clock with KFC on West Street, which was granted license a few weeks ago. So the noise often continues as well as customers wait for taxis or they congregate in areas beyond the control of the licence holder. So that is an issue, but one out of the licence holder's control. So as more and more premises apply for and are granted extended opening hours up to 3 and beyond, the more we see and hear antisocial behaviour. The cars, taxis, delivery drivers and customers simply wouldn't be in this area causing noise nuisance unless a licensed premises is open. So they wouldn't be there unless the places were open to go to. Just like to read an extract from Our City, Our Future, Safeguarding Sensitive Users from Noise and Nuisance. This is paragraph 4.46. Noise pollution can have significant adverse impacts on people's health and mental well-being. It is therefore important to ensure that people's living conditions are not disturbed by excessive noise and nuisance. Noise and nuisance mitigation measures, including restrictions on times of opening for late night users, may be a condition of planning permission. Outdoor seating areas have less opportunity for mitigation and therefore may have greater restrictions. So I'll move on now to dealing with the problem of noise nuisance. We feel that as residents, we are left to deal with the problem. In a report from the planning officer recommending Grappa's extension of hours, and I know this is not about the restaurant Chong, Qing, but it's relevant, I believe. The report commented that should any incidents of antisocial behaviour occur, this would be a matter for the police. So the above statement shows how easy it is to pass the problem onto another responsible authority, except that it's noticeable to us that there is little or no police presence, patrols on foot, I'm really talking about, along West Street or Glossop Road, and that phone calls to 101 never ever result in a response on the same evening. The other authority that may be able to help is the nighttime enforcement team. And they also can't react to noise incidents on the night, which sounds strange, but it's true. Premises have to be on the enforcement team's list. The process of getting a premises added to the list requires a resident to fill in a monitoring sheet for a few weeks, detailing how and when the premises are causing a disturbance, so that they are satisfied that it's an ongoing problem rather than a one-off. Therefore, trying to get a response to any so-called one-off is impossible and puts residents in the position of having to monitor incidents during unsocial hours for a number of weeks before any action or response is considered. So that's a nighttime enforcement team. Licensing have been helpful and effective at dealing with the premises that have strongly worded conditions attached to their licence. I'll emphasise that strongly worded conditions, because some premises that have significantly changed their offer, if you like, to customers have got very few conditions or no conditions. So that's another issue for another time. They can't solve all the problems we experience, but the process of granting a licence and the inclusion of relevant conditions is the vital first step in preventing noise nuisance. So licensing, some issues that we've identified. We often miss the blue notices posted in the windows of premises making a new application. So a question is, could the blue notices be posted in the nearest affected residential reception areas, if they exist? Which in most large blocks like ours, with 400 apartments, we have a reception area in every block. There is a list of pending applications available online, but this means the public have to look through several applications to maybe find the one that is relevant to them. So the last pending applications of, I don't know, over 20, you know, you've got to look through all of them to just find one. So this is useful, it's a useful tool, but it's very time consuming. Is there a way of searching for applications within a specific licensing area like the city centre? So that's another question. And currently licence applications are advertised in the Mercury newspaper, which has a limited physical presence at newsagents or supermarkets in Sheffield. And in fact, after the last subcommittee, we went across the road to the newsagents, and the woman there had worked there a long time, said, we haven't had that newspaper for years and years and years, but we've got the Sheffield Star if you want that. So the online version is not particularly easy to find or navigate, and excludes those members of the public who are not confident using websites or apps. So you've got an issue there, because not everybody is confident with the technology. So could licensing advertise licensing applications in the most widely available and read local newspaper, the Sheffield Star? I'd like to now move on to the applicant and some of the things that the applicant has disclosed to us. And so this is one of the things that Chong Qing have said. At present, we stop taking deliveries around midnight, if not beforehand. We have no intention of extending this. Our Chinese student-based customers have requested the sale of barbecue snacks in the early hours, as they often enjoy this service in China, hence the reason for the application to extend our opening hours. But we will either be allowing them to eat in, or if they want to take out, they will need to collect. Again, reiterating, there will be no deliveries after midnight. How will the applicant, so this is a question for the applicant, how will the applicant restrict their services to Chinese student-based customers? And the second statement is, however, regrettably, we cannot agree to just selling only barbecue snacks at midnight, or after midnight, I think they meant, although our intentions are to extend the hours to accommodate additional requests. As a business, we will not turn away the opportunity for income if customers request things from our current menu. The target audience is not those participating within the drinking circuit. So my question is, will the applicant refuse entry to those participating within the drinking circuit? And the last thing is the retail sale of alcohol on the premises, currently says 11 to midnight, 7 days a week. Does the applicant have a licence for off sales? I wasn't sure about that, and maybe licensing might know that. And do they intend to apply for one for midnight to 3 a.m. for off sales, and perhaps also for, they've said they won't for on sales, but I'm curious to know whether they will apply for off sales as well. We are concerned that we may miss future applications to extend the sale of alcohol to 3, or if the restaurant apply, for all the reasons I've said above, or if the restaurant applies to play music above background levels. And I know that that isn't the case at the moment, but we may miss if they decide that that's what they want to do and put another application in for that. For us, the worst case scenario would be the common trend of restaurants turning into bars and clubs after midnight. And this has already happened on Glossop Road. Both Grappa and Beju on Glossop Road, the start of Glossop Road, have advertised club nights until 2 a.m. The most recent promotional advert for Grappa states, join us for an evening of soul, disco, R&B at our launch party on May the 5th, that's this year, in a couple of weeks, with resident DJ LG Joseph. Free entry, 9 till 2. VIP drink offers. Come and join the party in honour of our upcoming club nights every Saturday at Grappa. So that potentially could be a problem. Well, more than potentially could be a problem. I think it will be a problem to residents that live above and directly across the road, which is myself, and probably about another 100 people. So does the applicant have any intentions in the future to apply for on sales up to 3 a.m. or play music above background levels? And does the applicant, because there are some other issues in West 1, but does the applicant have any intentions in the future to promote a karaoke night up to 3 a.m. to their Chinese student-based customers? And lastly, would it be possible just to hand that sheet to everybody? Is that okay? Yeah. Okay. It's enough for everybody, I think. Have you got one, Peter? Yeah. So the sheet that I've just asked to be handed out, basically it's a list of proposed licensing conditions should the variation application be granted. And I know that this is in addition to the ones I made in the original objection, but I had to get the objection in quite quickly, as you probably appreciate. And that's a few weeks of giving me a chance to think about it. Plus, in that time, we've had several noise nuisance complaints that I've had to make since I've made this application. So I've kind of adapted it a little bit from other restaurants and takeaways. So I'm asking for the DPS, number 1, or designated member of staff must take a proactive approach to noise control, regularly checking outside the premises to ensure that noise breakout of internal noise and noise from patrons or delivery drivers, riders, congregating or loitering within the curtilage of premises is managed so as not to cause a noise nuisance to occupiers of residential properties within the local area. Number 2, clear and legible signs, at least in A4 size, shall be displayed prominently inside the premises, including at the exits from the building, requesting customers and delivery drivers, riders, to behave in a quiet and considerate manner when entering or leaving the premises and until they have left the area, in order to respect the needs and rights of residents living nearby to a peaceful night's sleep, it should say. Sorry about that. A peaceful night's sleep. I don't know where that last word's gone. Number 3, the premises shall have in place and comply with at all times an operating plan for the delivery of takeaway meals that shall include measures to avoid nuisance to residents from vehicles and staff movements, both at collection and drop-off. All external doors and windows to be closed at all times on any day except for the purpose of access, egress, or in the case of emergency. Doors shall not be left propped open at any time. And the last one, 5, no delivery service, and I think I've added or collections by drivers, riders, just to make it clear. I've only added that since I spoke to Peter earlier. Permitted between the hours of 12 to 3 on any day of the week. And then lastly, Maxine's, my partner, has asked me to ask, how are licensing officers going to monitor deliveries if that becomes, if the variation is granted and there are issues, as Peter mentioned, about how effective the monitor is going to be, because as Peter mentioned again, it's always in the emails we get from licensing that they are understaffed. And so I'm guessing that from 12 till 3, they've got other issues to deal with, and maybe this might be towards the bottom of the list, I don't know. But it's going to be, I'm afraid, down to residents to, again, observe, film, and put all that together and make complaints. You also mentioned Operation Park Force, and we're not sure that that is working in the city centre, but is it something that we have to do to report issues on the night? I think that's what you meant. And just another issue that is adding to Peter's, which is the amount of crime that we already see and is reported around West Street and Devonshire Street and Carver Street, and serious crime around that area. Okay. So that's everything. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Booth, for your presentation. Again, we may have some questions. So we'll start with Councillor Crossland. Any questions?
Thank you. You spoke about strongly worded, was it amendments to licensing? Would you mind elaborating on that a little bit more? Just what you actually mean by strongly worded and examples where it might have worked.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay. I'll give an example, maybe Olivia's bar on West Street. They have the condition about the DPS taking a proactive control to control noise control outside. They have a garden area, and they haven't used it for a long time, and they have people queuing outside. So it was quite evident that that was a strongly worded condition that enabled licensing to enforce that condition. When I made a complaint about noise from the garden area, music noise, till it was not that late, but it was loud, very, very loud. And it was on a Sunday when the owner didn't think they were open. So the condition helped to solve that problem. There are other conditions, and often it's around the music and lobbies to music bars, and the fact that years ago these bars would be closed. 141, for example, years ago, in 2005 I think it was, I went and watched the Liverpool and AC Milan European Cup final. It wasn't a late night bar. I was in there, and I think that was 2005. So things have changed significantly, and often either bars ignore the request to keep the doors shut, but you've got an emphasis. Some licenses will say doors must be closed when there is licensed regulated entertainment, and that's confusing to people working there. So if you've got somebody working there that have never read the conditions, just started last week, for example, they're going to prop the doors open if that's what they've been told to do. And they won't then differentiate between, well, there's music on at a certain level, or there's music on really loud. They just open the doors and they stay open all night. So that's what I mean by strongly worded conditions. So where there's no doubt to what they actually mean.
Perfect, thank you. So one for the officers perhaps is about enforcement. We've heard that the licensing team are quite stretched. So what sort of evidence perhaps would be needed for some sort of enforcement if they were to breach any conditions? So like screenshots of Deliveroo if it's after midnight, for example?
Everything is evidence-based, so officers would have to witness it themselves. Screenshots, for example, we could look at them and build a case of evidence to see it looks like they're delivering beyond a certain time, it looks like they're advertising whatever, but we have to be able to see it to be able to prove that there's been any sort of breach taking place. We do have enforcement officers out every weekend, and they work till 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. We do have limited staff at the moment, but that's no different to any other council department, sadly, at the moment. But their job is to do that. Their job is, as an enforcement officer, their job is to go out in the early hours of the morning and cover the city. And they often have to pick points and follow up on complaints that have been specifically brought in or reported. Of course, they have only got a certain pair of hands, but equally, their job is to do this. This is what they're employed for, is to look at premises that are contravening any licence or conditions, anything like that, deal with complaints that are brought in, and that is, as much as it's going to be causing more work for people, it's not really because that is their job. That's what they're here to do, is to make sure that premises are operating within the remit of their licence and their conditions.
Thank you. And finally, I suppose a bit more informally, I heard what you said about possibly missing previous licensing applications, and you made some suggestions about how consultation could be improved. Through you, Chair, I don't think it's within the remit of this committee to make those changes, but as a council, I think we should always be open to hearing ways to improve. So
if I could interject at that point,
yeah.
It's actually the Licensing Act legislation itself that states exactly how they have to be advertised. So the way that they are on the premises or directly next to a premises is what the law says it has to be done. So it's not a case of, it's not within our remit to put up blue notices in residential dwellings around the area, because that's not what it allows us to do.
Yeah. So unfortunately, it's not within our power to make those changes, but yeah. Please, I suppose, speak to the MP as well about making changes to legislation, because I just don't want to make it sound like we're not listening to you when sometimes we just can't.
Sorry to interrupt, but it doesn't require you to advertise in a certain newspaper, though, does it?
It says a local newspaper. It's a local newspaper, it says.
That's not available
Local,
physically.
yeah, so it's not specifically defined in terms of local. And we've had this raised with Mercury previously, and looked at sort of where it circulates, where it's...
But that's a choice, isn't it, that you're making? It's not a requirement.
It's not our choice, it's the applicant's choice. They can advertise it wherever they wish. We don't sort of say put it in Mercury, we just say a local newspaper that's available within Sheffield.
So the applicant pays for that advert, not the licensing?
No, not.
Oh, right, I didn't know that. But how do they know to advertise in the Mercury?
Well, it looks as though they're picking the least read newspaper, doesn't it? Deliberately picking the one that nobody ever sees.
It might be cheaper. I mean, I don't know in terms of how
How does every applicant to Sheffield licensing just happen to know to put their advert in Sheffield, this Mercury newspaper, and not the most obvious one, which is Sheffield Star?
I think some do put it in the Star. That simply advise just to advertise it in accordance with the regulations in a local newspaper. So it's left to them. We don't sort of say which one. We don't have a preference. As long as it's a local newspaper and it's advertised properly, it's accepted.
That seems a bit strange to me.
I would suggest that if there's any questions about process, that we go to our parent policy committee in a way, which would be Waston Street Scene, I think, because we can't amend the process. We can only No, I find this fascinating to be. Thank you.
Okay, any questions from you, Sam? Any other questions? No? Do you have any questions of Mr. Booth? No. Okay, in that case, then let's forward to yourself, the applicants. Now you can detail your applicant and tell us what you want to tell us this morning.
First, we want to talk about takeaways and deliveries. And takeaways and deliveries will not be allowed after midnight. So for the extended hours, we'll close the online platform. If you want to order food, basically you have to walk in the shop, order from the counter, and then they will cook the food. And when the food is ready, only the customer can pick it up and take it away from the shop. Or major business was dining in, not just take out. And usually on the daytime delivery hours, the drivers, we ask them to park on the Victoria Street, which is opposite the road. There's a diamond building, which is a completely office, or drivers park near to that office. And for the music part, music always stopped around 8 to 9 o'clock in the nighttime. So restrictions can be put on the plan, as we are not going to play any kind of music during the midnight until 3 a.m. Also for the entertainment part, we are traditional Chinese restaurant. We are not intend to offer any kind of entertainment, including parties or anything including echoes, those kind of things. Our purpose is just to provide hot food. I think something what the gentleman just said, we are not just offer food for Chinese students. That will be a racist. So we are gonna be offer food for the residentials and students nearby. But anyone got drunk, we are not allow them to go into the shop. We can put a notice on the window when the nighttime hours started. Alcohol sale and alcohol consumed in the shop will be completely prevented. And also they were talking about the rising criminal rate. I think for eating properly in a restaurant without any alcohol or any entertainment to keep people's spirit up, there's very unlikely to commit any antisocial behaviors because we're eating properly in a restaurant. I think by carefully selected our customers, as any antisocial behavior and any drinking behavior are not allowed in the night and daytime hours. Only eating properly will make people more calm and peaceful. That's what I suggested. And also notice board will be put right next to the door when the customers leave our shop, and we will personally request them to be quiet when they left. That's what we think about. We are different from all those kind of the other entertainment, what the gentleman just bring up. We are not offering drink. We are not offering parties. We are not doing entertainment. We are not going to play music. No delivery and no takeaway will be allowed by all those online platform or on the phone. You know, any customers will have to walk into the shop, order the food personally, and will remind us to leave the property quietly, and will ask them to park near the office. Also for the location-wise, our shop actually is surrounded by offices. It's not residential. The nearest residential places were like blocks away from us. So without drinking or any entertainment, I think people could get better control of themselves. And we are not allow any people who already consume lots of alcohol and lost their consciousness to work in our property in the first place. Notice can be placed on the windows, or those restrictions can be put on our plan, which we have no problems about that. That's all.
Is that it? Okay, you finished?
Yes,
Okay.
finished.
We may have some questions then. Councillor Woodcraft.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that. So if takeaways are not going to be allowed after midnight, from what I understand, it's possible to place orders via the internet on the web. Will you be able to put that restriction on that? And particularly if, I mean, there's your own website, and can people order from other websites from yourselves, and how can that be policed?
Usually for those kind of big platforms, you can just turn your service off. There's a functional, you can just turn it off on the platform, which everybody could see it. For our online service, we'll make it very clear on our website. We are not offering any online orders, and you just couldn't order from the internet anymore.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. That's all for the moment, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson? Sam?
Did you say you're already asking customers when they leave to be quiet and to respect? Are you already doing that, did you say? Sorry.
Yes, to be honest, our customers are very decent people, because our major customers, students or residents from nearby, they are not drink from those pubs and then come to a restaurant. They always come in around the dinner time. And they always have a decent behavior. We are not going to accept any customer when they walk in the shop. It looks like they're going to be misbehaved. They will be kicked out of the shop. That's it.
Thank you. Try that again. Do you regularly get people trying to come in that are drunk? Do you experience that at all?
Very rarely, because once you walk in our restaurant, on the dishes we offer, it's not kind of bar food. It's kind of a very traditional dishes, and you have to sit down and you have a good manner and eat them.
Okay, thank you. And it's not so much of a question. Just I know you said you would be happy to put a notice up saying that you wouldn't admit people drunk or disorderly. I think that actually may attract more issues for you. If you're not sort of having those issues at the moment, I'd sort of be reluctant to sort of advise putting that notice up. Obviously, it's a matter for you. I certainly wouldn't advise the committee probably to put that as a condition. Just, I know premises previously have had issues where they've had that notice on the door, and it sort of increases the problems that you're trying to prevent. But obviously, it's completely up to you how you run that business.
Usually, we just the staff just walk out and explain to them in a really polite way. But if I think any people live nearby, they have those kind of requirements. They require us to put a notice or require us to take any measurements. We are happy to do that.
Thank you. And just finally, again, just to address the point that was raised before, the licence is purely for on sales. There are no off sales. It's not to say that you wouldn't reapply in the future, but it would come back, as I imagine there would be an objection. But as it stands currently, it's purely on sales. And I guess I'm right in saying that your alcohol sales aren't a big part of the business. It's mainly the food.
Our sales is basically like on an 80% of the sale is based on the food. And customers come to our shop usually not for drinking, it's for they always offer non-alcohol drinks. Very, very little customers will order alcohol drinks. We are not a kind of a pub or club style. We are just a traditional restaurant. And the Chinese people, when inside, the majority of the customer made of Chinese people, we don't have the habit to eat during drink.
No, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Okay. No more questions?
Could I just ask a question?
Yes, I'm going to open to yourself. Questions only, please. Yeah, just going to ask a question.
Sorry to go back to the advertising of the application, but do you know how you found out about this is for the applicant, do you know how you found out about the Mercury newspaper to advertise in there? This is for the applicant.
Yeah, I explained to her because she's the shop owner.
Ah, okay. It's okay.
Would you mind to repeat?
Yeah, how did you know to advertise in the Mercury newspaper in Sheffield? How did you find out about that?
She just told me that the council actually sent her a message to ask her to post the application on the Mercury newspaper, so she actually did that.
So it came from the council, right?
Peter?
Thanks, Chair. Can I ask questions, please, ladies? Well, first of all, I'm not clear how the service works after midnight. You said you have to go to the counter to order takeout. So presumably there's no seated accommodation in the restaurant being used after midnight. Is that correct?
We offer two kinds of services. Majorly is dining-in service, like customer work in the shop, sit on the table and eat food. Of course, they can only order non-alcohol drinks. And if you don't want to eat food in the restaurant, then you have to work in the counter and you order the food. And the food will be cooked in the kitchen. The customer needs to wait inside of the shop until the food was ready. And the customer himself take the food out. And he will be reminded to be quiet and well behaved when he left. And if he doesn't, he will be on the blacklist. Next time he won't allow to order any takeaways anymore.
Thank you. So that means that customers will all be able to go and eat at the tables in the restaurant then?
Yes.
As well as go up to the counter. Okay,
Yes.
So that raises the next question, Chair, if I may then. So if Deliveroo or Fantuan, because I notice in the window you've got this advert for Fantuan delivery. If Deliveroo or Fantuan riders came to the counter, they could order food for their guests. They have to wait for a few minutes for the food to be ready, but even if you switch off your system from midnight, it doesn't stop them taking an order and coming and buying the food from your...
The thing is, they can't order food from any kind of platform from our restaurant. Those delivery drivers.
Sorry, I didn't...
Because we will close down our business on our own website. We'll close all the platforms that are related to our restaurant, including Deliveroo and the online platform you're talking about. We are not going to offer services on those platforms after midnight.
I see. So if I've got that right, then people wouldn't be able to go to Deliveroo's website and order from you, because it would tell them it's closed. Is that right?
No, once you close it, your shop will not going to show on Deliveroo. So nobody could order anything from the platform from you.
Right, I see. Okay.
So we'd be able to see that.
You should not be able to see your shop or menu or doing anything on the platform.
After 12.
Yes, after 12, we'll immediately turn it off.
Okay, so I
You
think,
can check anytime because, you know, everybody have a phone, you can just access to it.
so I think we've established, Chair, that the delivery, the takeouts will not be available. Presumably we can check this, whether the website's available after midnight. But we have established as well that the restaurant will be open till 3 a.m.
Okay. Any more questions? No. Right, I am going to give an opportunity to just very briefly sum up first to the representatives. If you've got anything more to add, either of you, very briefly. No, thank you.
No,
Applicants, anything else you want to add or sum up? No? Okay. Right, I'm going to go to the licence officer to give us the options. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So the options available to the committee this morning are to vary the licence in the terms requested, to vary the premises licence with conditions, or to reject the whole or part of the application.
Thank you. So we are now going to go into private session, have a discussion, deliberate, and obviously call you back to let you know what the decision is. So we're now going to ask you to leave the meeting and that's officer while we deliberate. And just wait outside in that room there. Thank you. Okay, well, thank you all once again for coming in and making your representations, both to the objectors, representatives and the applicants. We have deliberated, we've considered everything that we've heard this morning, and we have come to a decision, and our decision is to approve the application as applied for, the application to vary the premises licence as applied for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate that.
Thank you. Just to round up again, to thank everyone for your time this morning. I know we've been here a long time and it's not very warm, but it is much appreciated. So as Chair said, it has been granted. We'll include in the condition that you've already agreed and that you've already said you're not going to do anyway, of no deliveries between midnight and 3 a.m. The committee have decided not to impose any further conditions on the licence at this stage. Obviously, you have the right of appeal against that decision, as you know. I've said it to you quite a number of times now.
If we decide to appeal, especially on the conditions, I know I don't know whether you have a reason for not including those other conditions. I don't think they're that onerous, but how do we appeal? So does it cost anything to appeal?
There is a cost, yeah. I think it's about £200 to lodge the application at the magistrate's court. So basically the notice that you get from the hearing, you can just take that down or ring them up, lodge it that way, pay the fee, and they'll list it for a hearing. So essentially what would happen is magistrates will sit exactly as members have done now. They'll look at all the evidence before them at that time and consider whether this decision was wrong in the circumstances. So it's irrelevant whether they agree with the decision or not, it's just whether they think members were wrong to grant the application in that manner.
Would you be able to let us know why you would only consider one condition when I think I put down 5 conditions? Is there a reason why you think those aren't appropriate?
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of an issue in terms of enforceability, but the main reason was the premises have operated here for a number of years without specifically causing any problem themselves. So we accept that there are problems in the area, but in terms of this premises, members didn't consider that they contributed to any of the nuisance or disorder in the area, and don't consider that by operating the extra 3 hours that this would lead to an increase. There was no evidence to suggest that this premises were causing a concern.
Okay, so I guess that if it goes, well, it's going to go ahead, if residents find that in a few months that there is an issue, then I guess we go through the same process of trying to, rather than an appeal, reviewing the licence to maybe add conditions if it's been proven or there's evidence that there are issues from the restaurant.
Yeah, certainly.
Would that be correct?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So the Licensing Act starts in a permissive way. So the presumption is that an application will be granted. It says it pretty much in the legislation itself that it's a permissive stepped regime. So the presumption is to grant an application as applied for, unless there's evidence to suggest that it would undermine one or more of the objectives. And then where premises have been open, they've been operating, and it comes to light that there are issues, then that's when the stepped approach kicks in. So we wouldn't just jump straight in and revoke it and whack a load of conditions on. We'd obviously liaise with you all, have that discussion and look at what measures are appropriate in the circumstances.
I just feel the applicant seemed to be willing to put up signs. I guess that's up to them now, but
Sure, yeah.
maybe they could have a look at the conditions I've suggested, and even if they're not conditions, maybe that might be helpful. You may not even ever have the door open, I don't know, but the ones about the signs, to maybe just remind your customers to be quiet, to save you having to tell them to be quiet all the time, just might be useful for us.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
But you've got, I think I gave you the list.
She's planning to do that as well as remind all the customers leave the shop lately, personally, in a really good manner.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for coming again.